Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of the Live Ones. It is our 2022 MLB baseball season preview. Everything starts tomorrow. You're getting ready for the sights and the sounds of the spring, the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the hot dogs, the soda, the beer, the days out at the park with your family. Baseball is Americana. I absolutely love this time of year. And as a fan, I was ready to get all huffy and all pouty when with the 100-day lockout. I thought that baseball was going to have to do something conciliatory to kind of get my interest back. There's certainly a whole lot of other things going on in the world of sports right now. You got the NBA playoffs just on the horizon. You got the NFL draft coming up right after that. You've got the Stanley Cup playoffs starting on April 30th. But let me tell you what, the flurry of free agency and trades and excitement, I'm glued to spring training. I'm riveted. I want to see everything that happens, and I just can't wait. And so we're going to do a special show here where we're just going to take a look at a preview of the season and from a handicapping perspective, the props for teams going forward, win totals, props to win their division, props to win the American League, the National League, props to win the World Series. What has value looking forward? And just full disclosure, this is just a matter of personal taste for me. I do not personally do long-term future props, season-long future props myself. I just don't like to tie up any kind of capital for that long, even if it's a small amount. Any money that you've got sitting dormant for that long, even with the kinds of returns that you can get, is money that you could be playing on a day-to-day and just find making much better returns over that 7-month period when you're talking about season-long props. But that doesn't mean that there isn't value if that's the sort of thing that you like to do. Certainly, even a surefire bet that you think for a World Series prop can return sometimes 6-1, 7-1, depending on what kind of a year it is. So while I don't do it myself, we're certainly going to take a look and just handicap everything and just see where exactly the value is. And we're just going to go from left to right on the map, and we're going to start off with the American League West. Sitting at the top, the Houston Astros, winners of 95 games last year. They are getting Justin Verlander back, obviously, from injury. Bregman is looking good in spring training after his injury, but this team has lost a lot over this great 6-7 year run that they've had. But this loss that they had in the offseason with Carlos Correa going to the Twins, I think this might signal the beginning of the end of their run. This team is passing the zenith of the window that they had to win World Series. But just, for the sake of their division at least, there's really nobody else that can contend with them. For the record, my model, just looking, my handicapping model has them winning about 91 games this year. Vegas kind of agrees with me. They have it at 92.5. They're minus 170 to win the American League West. I don't think there's any kind of value there because really just who else in their division is going to compete with that? And like I said, you're not going to tie up money for 7 months on something that has minus 170 chalk. They are plus 480 to win the American League. There's a lot of talent in the American League right now, and they are plus 1,000 to win the World Series. I don't really think that has a whole lot of value. So we're going to move on from there. The Anaheim Angels, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, whatever name they're going by now, they hit a major snag last year when Mike Trout went down for the second half of the year with an injury. They wound up winning 77 games, but of course we saw the rise of Shohei Ohtani, a guy who I really, really hope that this guy just inspires an entire generation of two-way players because he's just so much fun to watch. Just objectively, I love watching him pitch. I love watching him hit. They are getting Mike Trout back from injury. He looks good so far in spring training. They've got a whole new pitching staff to go along with Shohei Ohtani, but there's still major questions about their defense and their bullpen that, like there always is, that all the offense in the world can't cover up. I mean, you're talking about a bullpen that averages around a 5 ERA, and that's if you're talking nowadays modern day baseball, when the bullpen will sometimes come in the fourth inning, if not the fifth, you're talking about even if you have like a 3-run lead, a 4-run lead early in the game, that's not safe. The team should be improved, but not enough to get a wild card, I don't think. As we're going to see later, I think all of the 3 wild cards that are coming out of the American League this year are going to be coming from the East. That division is just so stacked. My model of handicapping's got them at 83 wins. Vegas absolutely agrees with me. They've got it at 83.5. They're plus 380 to win the division. That's a real long shot. I mean, it's got value. But I just don't. There's too many questions about the defense. There's too many questions about the bullpen. And the Astros, even though they're past their peak, they're still the Astros. They still should walk away with the AL West. Plus 1,200 to win the American League. If you don't think they're going to get into the playoffs, there's no reason to take these props. On to the Mariners. Man, this team, a 90-win team. They were in it until the last week of the season. Along with the Athletics in the AL West, they were chasing the Astros. They were chasing the wild card. They got every possible lucky break last year. They're not going to get that again this year. Somehow they won 90 games with the dead last offense in terms of batting average. They had a team batting average for a large part of the season. It was down near like 210. So I still to this day, I mean, I watched them all year, and I can't tell you how they won 90 games. Yeah, they had the dead last offense in the majors, middle of the road pitching. Their strength was their defense. They really, really performed well out in the field, and just the weak division that they played in. They did acquire Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez, and Robbie Ray from the Toronto Blue Jays. That was a really big pickup. They've got a really good young core, especially that outfield, that'll probably make them contenders when the Astros invariably fall off, like we were talking about. But it's still a couple of years away. They are plus 450 to win the AL East. Oh, I'm sorry. My model of handicapping has them at 80 wins, and I'm being. I mean, that's honestly on the generous side. I mean, it actually had them at about 79.5. I rounded up. Vegas has them at 83.5, so I think that under actually has some value as a futures prop. They're plus 450 to win the AL West. Again, I don't even think we're going to get to the AL East later as far as teams that are going to get into the playoffs. I think all the wild cards are coming out of there. Plus 1,500 to win the American League, plus 3,000 to win the World Series. These are not even props worth mentioning. The Rangers played like absolute ass last year, and they somehow think spending $500 million on 3 new players in Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, and John Gray is going to cover up the complete lack of depth and the terrible farm system that they've had for years now. They won 60 games last year. It's not going to cover it up. This team has one of the worst starting rotations in baseball last year, and it only got worse when they traded Kyle Gibson to the Phillies at the deadline. This team is going to be improved because they only had one way they could possibly go. My model's got them at 75 wins. Vegas, they've got it at 74.5, so no value there. And again, it's not even worth discussing the futures props. The Athletics, it's a fire sale. The team's moving to Las Vegas as soon as the stadium's complete. That is an open secret, and they don't have a single player or prop worth mentioning. For the record, my model has them at 68 wins. Vegas has them at 67.5, so we're in agreement there again. The Athletics, they're just, I've mentioned it on the show before, but they're just a glorified farm club. And it's a shame, too, because they've had some really great success the past couple of years, but they've just decided they can't get over the hump in the American League, playing in the same division as the Astros, and with the wild cards always usually going to AL East teams. So they're just selling everything of value and being one of those teams that has a $30 million payroll, collects $110 million from the revenue sharing, pockets of $80 million profit, and calls it a day. They're not going to be in Oakland for too much longer, I don't think. It's just a matter of when, not if, the announcement is made that they're moving to Las Vegas. But yeah, nothing about the Athletics is worth mentioning at all. Over to the National League West, and we're going to start off, obviously, with the odds-on favorite to win it all, the LA Dodgers. The rich got richer. For a lot of teams, you look at losing 2 players like Corey Seager and Kenley Jansen, just 2 absolute stalwarts of that team during this entire run that they've had. And you would think that would be just a terrible crushing blow that would stop them in their tracks. But no, the Dodgers, they are so deep. They went out and got Freddie Freeman in free agency, which means they now have 4 players on their team that have been an MVP at one time or another. They have one of the best farm systems in baseball. They constantly have new talent coming up to replenish the players that they lose, the players that age out, the players that have to go into free agency. It seems like the Dodgers are just always one of the haves. They're like they're the new Yankees. You can't not like these guys to blow the doors off a division where they play 36 games against bottom feeders in the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. The futures props, I have them at 97 wins. It was insane. You think about last year. They were a 106-win wildcard team, probably the only 106-win wildcard team we will ever see in the history of baseball. I just don't ever see that happening again. This is a team that they could lose realistically 20 more games than they did last year and still make the playoffs in a wild card in the same exact position that they were before. But yeah, Vegas has them at 99.5 wins. I think it's going to be a little less than that. It's really hard to repeat a 106-win performance 2 years in a row, especially when you lose 2 key players to free agency. The futures props, they have no value whatsoever. Minus 250 to win the division, plus 230 to win the National League, plus 480 to win the World Series. Do you really want to tie up your money for 7 months for a less than a 5-to-1 return? I wouldn't. You can if you want. Knock yourself out. Dodgers are definitely the best bet on the board, objectively. You can see that. But it just does not have enough value for me. The Padres, boy, there have been some epic second-half collapses in baseball, and there have been some really, really bad ones, and then there was what happened to the Padres last year. I mean, you talk about a division that finished with a 107-win team and a 106-win team, and at the beginning of July, the Padres were right in the thick of that division. I mean, they were a good, solid contender to win the NL West, and then the wheels just fell off their starting pitching to the point where they brought in Vince Velasquez and Jake Arrieta to come in and pick up the slack of the pitching. I'm sitting here as a Phillies fan, and I'm going, really? Those guys? Okay, that's who you're bringing in to shore things up. I have to imagine because the collapse with their pitching, and it was both in their starting pitching and their relief pitching, started right around the time that the crackdown on sticky substances on the part of pitchers was being enacted by the umpires, and that's really when the wheels fell off. They're already in a major hole in that they're one of their star players, Fernando Tatis, is gone until June with a fractured wrist. The bullpen should be improved. They have the talent to be wild card contenders. I just don't think that there's value in any of their props to win the division at plus 380. The Dodgers are just too deep, and they can weather an injury or two if things start to go bad for them. The Padres just don't have the level of depth of the Dodgers. They could sneak into the playoffs as a wild card. They're plus 750 to win the National League. I don't see. At some point, they're going to have to face the Dodgers in a straight-up series to do that, and I just don't see in 5 games or in 7 games them beating them. The Giants, wow. You talk about lightning in a bottle. A team that everybody had pegged as a middle-of-the-road team. Gabe Kapler in there in his first year as a manager. With a bunch of throwback players, really. A bunch of players that no other team wanted. Guys like Darren Ruff. And they put together a 107-win season just off of the sheer power of analytics. You wonder why analytics is such a big thing. It's because it works. The purists of baseball want to get away from it, but it works. Until they find ways to counter it, they're just going to keep on using it. But yeah, lightning in a bottle last year, the most exciting 5-game NLDS I've seen in a long time with the Dodgers where they got bounced out. Man, that Game 5 was so exciting. So exciting. But that's not going to happen again. This is a whole new pitching roster that they've built around their surprise breakout ace, Logan Webb. Guys who exceeded all expectations on offense last year would need to do it again. Again, I'm coming back to Darren Ruff, but he was a superstar for the Giants last year. And just, all those years with the Phillies, he just never showed that. And that was the year of his career right there. If you're a believer, the props have value, absolutely. Plus 600 to win the NL West. If you think they're a better team than the Dodgers again this year, go ahead and take that. Plus 1,200 to win the National League if they can get into the playoffs, even if they don't, finish ahead of the Dodgers. If you're a believer, that prop has value. Plus 2,500 to win the World Series. 25-1. If you think the Giants are that talented again, go ahead and jump on that. I just don't. if you're a believer, jump on it. I'm not a believer. On to the Diamondbacks. Man, this team just had the worst combination of bad luck, injuries, and COVID imaginable last year. You had a stretch, and I went over this on the show last year. They went for like 6 weeks where they were, I felt like, where they were missing all 5 of their starting pitchers from opening day. And I mean, they were just scrambling. They were putting anybody in there. This is a team that I think had something like 54 bullpen days total, where they just didn't use a starting pitcher, and the results were obvious. I mean, they they lost 110 games. They went 52 and 110. They should have most of these guys back from injury, and it's a decent enough rotation that they're going to be improved somewhat. But this is a team that could win, 20 more games and still only be a 72-win team, and they did nothing to improve the team in the offseason on offense. They're not going to be contenders at all, not in this division with the Dodgers, Padres, and Giants. For the record, I have them as a 70-win team. I think just having their starting pitchers back is going to get them some wins by accident, particularly with the Rockies being an even worse team, looks like this year. Vegas has them at 66.5. So if you're with me there, if you think they're going to be improved to a great degree and that they weren't nearly as bad as their 52 and 110 record, that's got some value. But bet it at your own risk, because this is a loaded, stacked division. Speaking of the Rockies, 74-win team last year. They signed Chris Bryant, which was a huge, shocking surprise. I frankly think Chris Bryant is out there chasing home run stats in the thin air in that beautiful homer hitter ballpark. But they did lose Trevor Story and John Gray, and that to me is a wash. Getting Chris Bryant, but losing those two. The offense had just very little pop last year. You can bring Chris Bryant in, but with no hit protection around him, he's going to get pitched around a lot. There's too many questions about the starting rotation. I mean, your ace is Herman Marquez. This is going to be a step backward for this team this year, a really, really big one. I got him at 69 wins. Vegas agrees with me, 68.5. These props are not even worth mentioning. It's funny, just out of curiosity, for amusement, their prop to win the NL West is plus 12,000, so 120 to 1. But they're plus 7,500 to win the National League. I guess they figure like if you can sneak in on as a wild card, you got just as good of a chance as anybody. But this team's not going anywhere. Moving east to the AL Central, we're going to start at the top with the Chicago White Sox, my wife's favorite team. Fielding largely the same team as last year. They were a great 93-win team, one of the best teams in the American League. Although they did have a really interesting home and away split. They were a much, much better pitching team at home, and that always raised a red flag with me. Statistically, you look at that and you say, I don't know what's going on there. They were noticeably like a full ERA point better at home. I don't know if there's like some new shenanigans that we haven't figured out yet. Something we might come back in a couple of years and say, oh, yeah, that's what was going on there. But this is pretty much the same exact team, so I pretty much expect exactly the same results. There are a whole lot of really, really weak clubs in the AL Central for the White Sox to feast on. This is a team that could win 92, 93 games again, and they could get a first-round bye in the playoffs with an outside chance for them to win the American League. I don't think they could take the Dodgers in the World Series, but I absolutely think this team's got as good of a chance as anybody of winning the American League and going to the World Series. So for the record, minus 210 to win the AL Central, no value. Plus 460 to win the American League, that's got value. Plus 950 to win the World Series, not long enough odds for me to take that. The Twins, 73-win team last year, maybe the most improved team in terms of personnel. They certainly went on a spending spree in the offseason. They added Carlos Correa from the Houston Astros. What a great pickup that was. Sonny Gray, Dylan Bundy, Gary Sanchez, and Gio Urshela. And finally showed the frequently injured and or suspended, sometimes both at once, Michael Pineda the door. But as improved as their lineup is, they are still weak in their starting rotation and weak in the bullpen, and that's just going to lose them more games than they'd like. I don't like this team as a wild card contender. Again, we'll get to the AL East later. I have them as a 500 team, 82 and 80. Vegas agrees with me, 81.5. Their futures props aren't worth mentioning. The Cleveland Guardians, that is going to take some getting used to. And it's also going to take some getting used to of caring about the Cleveland Guardians, because I guarantee you, quick, if you're not a Cleveland fan, without looking it up, Name me 3 position players for the Guardians. You can't. I mean, you've maybe heard of Jose Ramirez and Franmil Reyes, maybe. This team is so thin in terms of run production that nothing else they do matters. They're not making much of an attempt to improve themselves either. I got them as a 77-win team. 75.5 is the futures prop. No other props are worth mentioning. The Detroit Tigers made some moves this winter, certainly. They signed Javier Baez to a 6-year deal, Eduardo Rodriguez for 5 seasons, and they just yesterday picked up Austin Meadows from the Rays. But those are Band-Aids to cover up for the fact that this team is just so thin on overall depth. They're terrible at drafting. I mean, when you got 38-year-old Miguel Cabrera still getting more wins above replacement from the DH position than just about anybody they put on the field, it's sad. It's just really, really sad to have to watch. This team is sad. I got them as a 76-win team. I got them as pretty much the exact same team that they were last year, even with all these moves. They just have no depth. That's all there is to it. I mean, you can get big-name free agents, but you plug them in places. If you don't have a full team, it's not really going to matter. The Kansas City Royals, this team has been rebuilding for a while. They're a 74-win team last year, and it shows. But this season, the investments should start bearing fruit. Everyone is super stoked about the number 1 prospect in baseball making his debut tomorrow in Bobby Witt Jr. at third base. This kid is being touted as the next big thing. A 5-tool player over at third base, hit for contact, hit for power, run the base pass, great defense, and great throwing arm. They have 2 other top 50 stars as well, Nick Pratto and MJ Melendez, that should get called up before the All-Star break. These guys might well be the young core that lets this team go on another run, but it's not going to be this year. 75-win team on my model. Vegas agrees with me, 74.5. The NL Central. Start at the top with the Brewers. This team is the odds-on favorite to win the Central again, and why not? With their incredible starting pitching trio of Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, and Freddie Peralta. If these guys are healthy all year, this is a team that finishes above 500 just based on that. The questions, as always, are on offense. What Christian Yelich are we going to get this year? 2018, 2019 Christian Yelich, or the Christian Yelich he's been the rest of his career? It makes a difference of about 8 or 9 wins, whether he's playing at his best or his worst. That's how amazing an impact player this guy can be, and how big of a black hole he is when he's not up to par. If everything goes right for the Brewers, they could easily contend for the National League title, but something pretty amazing would have to happen for them to beat the Dodgers and then go on to the World Series. I think their path to the NL title rests with somebody else, shocking the Dodgers in a 5-game series in the NLDS. So they are minus 170 to win the NL Central, no value there. Plus 550 to win the National League, maybe. Plus 1,200 to win the World Series. Not long enough odds for me. Excuse me. All right, so the team that I am probably the most bullish on after I saw them last year, the St. Louis Cardinals. No team benefited more from the Padres and the Phillies both falling off at the end of the year than the Cardinals. They snuck into the second wild card, but they drew the worst possible opponent in the Dodgers in a 1-game playoff, and they're gone just like that. This year, they're fielding the same team, more or less, and they're positioned to do well, provided everyone plays up to form again, which is always a big if. But yeah, like I said, I'm really bullish on the Cardinals after what I saw last year. This team is playing 56 games against some really, really sorry clubs, all tanking. And I think if the Brewers get bit by the injury bug or just don't have anyone contribute on offense, there's value in the NL Central prop, plus 240 to win the NL Central. Absolutely. The Reds, one of the 3 fire sale teams in this division, the Reds got rid of Sonny Gray, Nick Castellanos, Tucker Barnhart, Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez, Wade Miley, and Amir Garrett, and are just looking to build around Jonathan India and some of their younger players. They're going to win a few games by accident just because they have the other 2 teams tanking in the division that we're going to get to. I got them at 75 wins. Vegas has them at 73.5. The Cubs, another fire sale. They got rid of Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, Craig Kimbrell, and Ryan Tapara at the trade deadline. Now, they did go out and get Marcus Stroman, Nick Madrigal, and Wade Miley in the offseason to help paper over the cracks a little bit and keep some fans coming out to Wrigley, but it's obvious this team is rebuilding. I got them at 73 wins. Vegas has them at 74.5. No other props worth mentioning. The Pirates, oh God, the quintessential glorified farm club for other teams. Now, the model that they have, where they just constantly, whatever great trade pieces, great pieces they develop through their farm system, they just trade back for future draft prospects so they can have more and more bites at the draft apple, and just keep putting a $30 million team out on the field, just like the Athletics, and just netting the profit of the Major League Baseball revenue sharing. you can't say they don't know what they're doing because they've got 6 top 100 prospects in the pipeline. 65 win team. Vegas has it at 64.5. I don't even like. The Pirates just piss me off. They're one of the teams in Major League Baseball that pisses me off because they're anti-competitive, and I really, really hate that as a sports fan. All right, into the division that should excite you the most as a baseball fan, the AL East. This team has 4 teams that could realistically win the division. It's going to be so tight, but we're going to start at the team at the top that I think on paper is the best bet to win it all, and that is not the Yankees, not the Red Sox, not even the Rays, the Toronto Blue Jays. They let Marcus Semien and Robbie Ray go to get younger with Matt Chapman and Kevin Gausman. This may be, on paper, the most talented team in the American League. Plus, they've got a huge, huge advantage in the they get to play, finally, a full season at home in Canada, where they can kind of filter out some other teams' players due to the Canadian vaccine requirement for entry. I'm looking at you, Aaron Judge. We all know. I think this is the year they put it all together and they win a very tight, hotly contested 4-way divisional race. You're going to be surprised. I think at the win total that I've got for them at 92 wins, I just think the Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Rays are all going to cannibalize each other. Nobody's really going to be able to gain a really clear advantage on them, and it's going to be a tight 4-way race until the end. Plus 170 to win the AL East, that's got value, absolutely. Plus 450 to win the American League, that's got value, absolutely. Plus 850 to win the World Series. It would be a really tight slugfest with either the Dodgers or the Braves. Both of those teams, I think, would give them a really, really good fight. But I would like some longer odds to tie up my money for that long on a one-team bet. The Yankees had an unusually quiet offseason. More notable for the players they let go rather than the ones they brought in. Simply moving Gleyber Torres to second base should improve their defense, and Luis Severino coming back healthy should improve their pitching. However, this should be about the same exact team it was last year. In the thick of it in the AL East, wildcard team for sure. I've got them at 91 wins, one less than last year. Vegas has them at 92.5. If you like them, if you're a fan of the club, there's a decent World Series prop for them at plus 1,300. Hey, they've got just as good a case as being a World Series contender as a lot of other teams. That's got some value. Not as much value, however, as the Red Sox prop. The Red Sox, Chris Sale. Oh, Chris Sale, what your career could have been. A fractured rib is going to be keeping him out of action again for a while, and that's a problem for a team that's become so heavily reliant on its bullpen to eat innings. But getting Trevor Story is a huge pickup that should offset that. This team should be right in the thick of it in the East, as they always are. Vegas has them as a plus, or as an 85.5 win team. I actually think they're going to go a lot over that. I think they're going to be around 88 wins. Again, I think all these teams are going to cannibalize each other up at the top. Plus 500 to win the AL East. Decent value there, I would say, absolutely. Plus 1,200 to win the American League if they can get into the playoffs. Hey, anybody can win if you get into the playoffs. Plus 2,500 to win the World Series. That's value worth tying up your money for 7 months for. A 25-1 return on a team that, you figure is probably going to make the playoffs. And, 25-1 return. Absolutely. That has value as a World Series prop. The Tampa Bay Rays, as great as this run of constant, fantastic drafting and development as the Rays has been, and as exciting as it is to see Wander Franco play his first full season, they are getting bit by the injury bug early, and that's likely going to dig them a hole in what's going to be an extremely competitive AL East. I don't think they can get to 100 wins again. I think that was a little bit of a fluke last year. I don't think they can get to 95. I don't think any of these 4 AL East teams can get to 95 at all. But there is shockingly little second-tier talent in the American League, and I think they should absolutely be right there for the third wildcard spot. And if they can get into the playoffs, who knows? This is a team that can always go on a run. Vegas has them as a slightly better chance than the Red Sox at plus 1,600 to win the World Series. I'm not touching that. Not long enough for me. The Orioles, I don't have anything to say about this team. Just rewind back to what I said about the Pirates, exact same thing. Okay, and finally over to the NL East. At the top, the Braves, the defending World Series champions. No one got hotter in the second half of the year, but they lost MVP Freddie Freeman and their short-term rentals, Jorge Soler and Jock Peterson. And then they added Matt Olson, Kenley Jansen, and Colin McHugh. Ronald Acuna Jr. and Mike Soroka are going to be back from their injuries. They have the best bullpen in baseball, and they use it right. No reason at all this team shouldn't win the East a fourth year in a row. But can they beat the Dodgers again? We're going to have to see. They are plus 125 to win the NL East. Decent value, not decent enough for me. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about some of the other teams next. Plus 500 to win the National League. Again, I don't like betting against the Dodgers right now. Plus 1,200 to win the World Series. It's been a long time since a team has repeated as World Series champions for a very good reason. The Philadelphia Phillies, John Middleton said he was going to spend stupid money to get Bryce Harper. He did. And then he followed it up with more, signing Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos to form a lineup that says, who needs a bullpen? Who needs defense? They did try to improve their bullpen somewhat by signing Familia and Brad Hand to shore up a really, 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 really comically bad bullpen that blew 34 saves last year. What this team could have been if they just had a halfway decent bullpen, I swear. This team is going to win a lot of 10 to 8 games, and they're going to lose a lot of 10 to 8 games. That's just, everybody knows it going in, and that's just going to be the way it is. But they will be in wildcard contention for sure. I've got them as an 88-win team. Vegas has them at 86.5. Plus 340 to win the NL East. I don't think they're going to win the NL East. I just think the Braves, the advantage of the bullpen is night and day with the Braves. The Braves are absolutely, I think, going to win the division. Plus 1,200 to win the National League. If they can sneak in and somebody else beats the Braves and somebody else beats the Dodgers, I don't know what path it would take, some crazy path. But if it could happen. Plus 2,500 to win the World Series. I just, without a defense and without a bullpen, there's no chance. The Mets. Whoa, what's that? I have the Mets ranked below the Phillies? Sacrilege. After all the money they spent filling in their missing pieces, after all that money Steve Cohen spent, and this is how you repay him, sports handicapper? Yeah, I do. You have to remember they do this every single year. They're the Mets. In some way or another, whether it's injuries or guys not playing up to their contracts, it's gonna go wrong for them. They are the accident waiting to happen. And what happened? Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer are already both hurt. DeGrom looks like he might be out for months. Scherzer, it's a hamstring injury. He's also 38 years old. It's going to take a while to recover from that. Francisco Lindor is already striking out a lot in spring training. This is a team that hasn't won 90 games since 2015. And you're giving me a win total prop of 88.5? Smash that under, folks. That is a lock. Under 88.5 wins. Marlins. Take exactly what I said about the Orioles and the Pirates and apply it to the Marlins. They're a poverty franchise that trades away its best talent every 3 years. But they have some advantages over the Orioles and the Pirates in that they have talent on the field currently, particularly in terms of pitching. That starting trio of Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, and Trevor Rogers are all guys that can go out in any start and get double-digit strikeouts. They're terrifying. The bullpen is full of innings eaters who can keep things in check late. That alone puts them in a class above the rest of the poverty franchises, but they're still a poverty franchise. I got them at 76 wins. Vegas has them at 77.5. And finally, last but not least, out of the 30 teams, the Washington Nationals. Man, that World Series seems so long ago, doesn't it? I've seen trade deadline fire sales before, but wow. The Nats gave away Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, Daniel Hudson, Kyle Schwarber, Yan Gomes, John Lester, and Brad Hand to other teams for a haul of prospects to replace the farm system that they decimated in order to get that title in the first place. Of the 11 players they got back in return, expect to see catcher Keibert Ruiz on the field right away and starting pitcher Gerardo Carrillo come up in the fall when the Nats invariably stink up the joint. The rest, well, they're going to have to take some time to develop. This team's going to be improved. Last year, obviously, they had only one way they could go. If Steven Strasburg can stay healthy, that's always a big if with him. This year's about locking up Juan Soto for the long term and building around him. I've got the Nationals as a 70-win team. Vegas has them at 69.5. All right, so what does that leave us with? The playoffs, AL division winners, I've got the Astros, White Sox, and Blue Jays. The wild cards, I've got Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays. NL division winners, I've got Dodgers, Brewers, and Braves. The wild cards, Padres, Cardinals, and Phillies. The best futures bets, I talked about a couple of these. Mariners, under 83.5 wins. I like that. I just think they're way overvalued just based on the performance last year. They were a 90-win team who hit like a 70-win team. We're going to split the difference and put them around 80 wins this year. Diamondbacks, over 66.5, but that's, bet at your own risk. Don't put too much on that one. Red Sox over 85.5 wins. I think that's too low given the talent that these guys have. Rays under 89.5 wins. I really do think we see some regression to what the Rays should have been last year, but they got the benefit of a lot of lucky breaks to get to 100 wins. Mets under 88.5 wins. Everything's going to go wrong for them. It's just a matter of time. Blue Jays, plus 170 to win the AL East and plus 450 to win the American League. I love both of those. Cardinals, plus 240 to win the NL Central. I think it's going to be close enough where 2.5 to 1 return is going to be a good value. And for best value for World Series, Red Sox, plus 2,500. That's a bet that's worth tying up your money for 7 months for. That's going to be all for me, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was some use to you in figuring out your futures props. Again, I don't do them myself, but it doesn't mean there's not value in them. Everyone have yourselves a great Wednesday night. We will see you tomorrow for the first day of Major League Baseball.